Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your Master Coach today. And today we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect. Now the reason why we're talking about the Mandela Effect is because it is related to mindset. It is how our minds betray us. In a sense, we think that we know something. We're like 100% certain. We're like, I'm 100% certain. I'll bet $1 million that I am correct. But the reality is, sometimes our mind might not be giving us all of the truth that we need when we need it. But there are many reasons why this is going to be a proponent in our mindset. We are going to be talking about this today in my most recent blog when we are trying to understand the Mandela Effect and how it betrays us, how we need to look at the different nuances in all aspects of our mind so then we don't fall victim to this type of effect. It is something that can be avoided, but we do have to be aware of it. Jumping straight into this article, The Mandela Effect When Our Minds Betray Us, we are going to be talking about this today. If you would like to read it, head over to the website. The link is in the description box below to go straight to the article so you can just check it out. Now, when we are talking about the Mandela Effect, this is a term that was coined by Fiona Broome, 2009, when she discovered that she and many others remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Now, I never thought that he died in prison. Of course, we can see that this effect is the reality. In a sense, this is misinformation, where people might have said he died, or maybe that was the reality of people, seeing him go into prison, like, oh, he's going to die in prison, etc. But the reality is he passed away in 2013 after he was released from prison in 1990 and after he was president. So that was one example of how people can think, oh, why is, this not true when I'm thinking it is true? And this is why the term is called the Mandela Effect. I do give a couple more examples here with the Bernstein Bears and the Star Wars and the Pikachu and the tail, where there's different aspects that we think, oh, does this character or does this thing or does this movie have this saying? But the reality is sometimes our reality can be misconstrued with what we think we have heard or what other people tell us this is what is the reality. The thing that I'm going to read to you here is going to be the premise in the full conversation for today's episode. The Mandela Effect highlights a critical truth about human memory. It is highly malleable and prone to error. But why do our brains trick us in such a profound way? Here are a few psychological concepts that help us understand this phenomena. Number 1, false memories. 2, confabulation. 3, cognitive dissonance. And 4, social reinforcement. Today we're going to be looking at these 4 areas. These are going to be the premise for our conversation. Of course, you can read what I have written here and you can take that for whatever it is, but we need to look at these 4 steps into much more detail. So when we look at number 1, right, false memories, they say that our brains can fill in the gaps for memories. We might say that this is what we think is the right, it seems to fit. You might have done this on a test when you were younger. Maybe you have like those Scantron tests. I don't know if they still have Scantron tests for kids, but I think if you take a SAT, you probably use Scantrons. But either way, you are going to have these tests and you might say that the first answer that you're going down or second, it doesn't matter the number, but the question that you're on, you might have 4 or 5 different options, so A, B, C, D, E. And then you will say, you know what? I'm going to pick A. I'm 100% positive it is A. But then, you get your test later on, you can't see the ones you got wrong. But on a real test, like from a teacher and stuff like that, you probably can see which ones you got wrong. Now, you might have been 100% certain that A was correct. But the reality is that it might have been C. What was it in your mind that gave you this false memory that A was the answer? You were 100% certain. Now, this is to say that you were certain. This is not to say that you were guessing and that you were trying and that you didn't study and you're just picking whatever you thought, or maybe you thought you heard that in class and you say, maybe that's the right answer. This is you saying, I'm 100% certain that this is the right answer, but it's not. This can lead to the creation of those false memories that we have been talking about that can create the Mandela Effect. That only begins to exasperate as we go down our list, because now our brain is going to start to create a false narrative. Oh, you know what? The reason why this happened was because I was hungry or I was tired. And we're not lying or anything, but we're just trying to deceive our unconscious mind to say, hey, maybe we were wrong, where we tried to make excuses. The reality is, at some point, you even have to run away from your excuses and say, you know what, I was 100% wrong. My mind can be incorrect. And if we don't accept that, then guess what begins to happen? We start to allow more of these Mandela Effect situations to come into play, because now our mind is going to not be 100% accurate. It might think it's 100% accurate. We're not even saying that our mind is viable to make a mistake. What we know in our mind, in our hearts of heart, is that we are not wrong. And many people don't like to be wrong in our world today. Then we look at the cognitive dissonance of it, where we have this information that contradicts our beliefs. I have said this on the podcast, and I will continue to say it because it's so powerful. If you tell yourself a lie long enough, it becomes your truth. Many people don't realize it. You look in the mirror. Oh, you're beautiful just the way you are. When the reality is, you're not. Deep down inside, if you did some mindset work, you can figure out if you are truly happy with yourself. If I look in the mirror and I see maybe bags under my eyes, wrinkles, and I see dry skin patches, and I can say, you know what? I look good today. But the reality is, I know I don't look good. I know that I can do better. And it's not so much that I need to do better, right? You know, this is not the conversation of needing to be better or needing to look better. It's just the reality of, are you telling yourself the truth? And oftentimes, when it comes to beauty standards, people will shy away from the standards of beauty if it's not in alignment to what societal standards are. So, for example, if you are not the perfect weight, or if you're not the perfect height, or if you are not the perfect look, hair, etc., you're going to say, well, you know what? This is the new trend. This is the new style. It doesn't matter the style. It doesn't matter the trend. As long as I feel good, I feel happy. This is a soft lie because you're trying to tell your brain something, but the reality is that it's not going to be able to get away from our true beliefs. Because we can say something on the outside. For example, let's say someone says something mean to you, and you're like, ooh, that hurt. But guess what? You go, all right, and all right, thanks for telling me. So you say something along those lines. So the person thinks like, oh, you know, what I said didn't hurt. But the reality is, you know, it might have hurt. The belief is that it hurt. If you think about bullying, for example, this is, you know, something that happens with bullies where they don't necessarily know that they are in a position that if they were told something, how fragile they are also. So they are always on the onslaught, you know, they're always on the attack because they are worried that they're going to be attacked. And typically people don't stand up to bullies. So for example, if a bully is bullying somebody, the person typically, you know, becomes recluse, they become introverted, they shy away. They don't attack. And I'm not saying that we have to be physical and attack the bully. I'm talking about we question what is going on, what is being said. Because if a bully says, you're stupid, and you say, okay, well, if I'm so stupid, and you give them a math problem or something, or you can talk about their recent test, you can say, if I'm so stupid, why in the last test I had a higher score than you or a higher grade than you? And now the premise of it is the contradiction of you being stupid is now looking at them as being stupid because they got a worse score than you. This is the reality, right? Many people are just told to believe something, but they don't combat what they have been told, and it creates this dissonance that is not good. Then we get into social reinforcement. And this is probably maybe the biggest one because I can say, you know, something, and then you might say, this is a belief. Typically, the things I say are going to be backed by facts, statistics. Some is going to be anecdotal evidence that I have already lived. Again, people's situations might be different, but I'm not here to tell you false information. And if I do, I'm here to admit that, hey, you know what I told you? We need to rethink that. We need to reinvestigate it. This is something that we need to be looking at. Where the accuracy of things are going to be based on what people are saying. For example, this Luke Skywalker thing is one of the Mandela effects. Is apparently Darth Vader says, Luke, I am your father. But the reality is he didn't say, Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father. And it was something I actually researched before this episode, actually before even the blog. I said, let me look this up and see if it's true. And here's the crazy part is, I never really watched Star Wars. I'm not going to lie and say, hey, I watched all the Star Wars. My uncle, actually, he watched Star Wars. Like, he liked Star Wars. It's a big movie growing up for him. But for me, it was like Ninja Turtles and stuff like that and Power Rangers. Like, Star Wars was a bit outdated. And I remember one time, it was like for Thanksgiving, I guess Star Wars had came on the TV and he was like, oh, let's watch Star Wars or something. And I'm like, oh, I didn't watch it. And then he like looked at me. He goes, you didn't watch Star Wars? Like, really? Like, we have to watch it. I understand some people love Star Wars and things like that, but I couldn't, recite many of the lines. Most of the things I know about Star Wars are going to be because people told me or because, people have said things. So when social reinforcement comes into this aspect of Star Wars, like, Luke, I'm your father. I hear about it all the time. It's on memes and things along those lines. I'm like, this is what he said. But the reality is, if I did some research by myself, and as I did, I found the truth. Sometimes you have to do the groundwork. You just can't accept everything blindly. The reality is, sometimes our mind can play tricks on us. And if we're not focused on enhancing ourselves, then we are going to be prone to, falling into this effect of we think we're 100% right, but we're actually 100% incorrect. And then we get into the aspect of what the Mandela effect truly brings about. It brings about an opportunity for our mindset to grow and to enhance itself. How do we do that? We have talked about this all about on the podcast just to get to this episode today. If you have not listened to past episodes, I encourage you to rewind a little bit, check out some of the episodes. All of this is a mindset. The mindset, typically, when it comes to coaching a session, I know we're getting close to episode 500. We have a foundational build. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter where you come into the podcast. For example, let's say you came in episode 300, and 300 is probably a really good number to come in. The podcast is a bit more refined, etc. The reality now is you missed prior 300 plus episodes of foundational mindset stuff. So sometimes you have to go back at least 50 episodes if you're a new listener. And if you haven't, then, you can just stay around for 50 episodes and you might be caught up. It's a very good possibility that you are going to be caught up because the way we do mindset is it's a foundation. We reinforce, we fill in the holes, we reinforce, and it's like we're building our empire. But it takes a long time for the foundation work. And the areas that we have to look at in order to safeguard our mind when it comes to something along the lines of this Mandela effect is we need to enhance our critical thinking skills. We need to enhance our documentation, our journaling skills. And then we need to create our awareness skills. Now, if you remember the episode Critical Thinking, we have talked about critical thinking, common sense in the real world, what it is today. Then we fast forward because we talked about journaling a little bit already, but the aspect that creating awareness is big. We have many episodes on awareness. We have many blogs on awareness. And it all comes down to if we're trying to be the most factual type of people with the best information, meaning it's accurate, it's going to be effective, it's good, we need to make some adjustments. How do we make those adjustments? Well, critical thinking is something that has been lost today, right? I'm not saying that we can't get it back, but many people don't think past what they're told. So for example, let's say I'm going to go into a school, I'm going to pick up a book, and the book says that this happened. I'm sure if you have been, listening to the news probably a year ago, 2 years ago, where they were like trying to change some of the things about slavery in the books or along those lines, people were like so upset about this happening. And they were like, I can't believe this is happening. The reality is, if they change that, imagine how many individuals will be going through this Mandela effect in a sense, because they're going to say, I learned this in school. This is the reality. But then the reality might be that this truly might have never happened. So we look at Christopher Columbus, for example. He was not the person who discovered America, but he is the person who's accredited to it. So we celebrate him. He has a holiday. He's in the books and everything. This is the reality, right? Certain inventors, etc. Certain people are accredited with their inventions or their works, and that's what we say. But the aspect is, there could be someone else. There could be someone who has done something before. We are just looking at who got the credit, who we were told to believe, who is the winner. Documentation comes into play now, right? We are documenting everything to see if it's true. But then we also have to look at, if we're documenting things, we also have to look at referring to things. Meaning, if I hear something or if I'm told something, I should be able to go back and say, you know what? Let me cross the T's, dot the I's. Let me make sure everything is in according to the truth, not so much of according to what someone has told me. We have seen this during the pandemic. We continue to see it today. People are going to follow what they have been told rather than what they have found. And if you do go to certain news outlets, for example, Google, CNN, BBC, ABC, etc., they're going to be biased to a certain extent because, again, they have their viewers. For me, I'm not biased in any sense. I'm going to tell you how it is. If we are wrong, we're wrong. If we're right, we're right. But at the end of the day, we're trying to create an impact so people can empower themselves. This is the awareness that we're going to be getting into now. And if we're not aware of what the mind can be doing, how the mind can be thinking, we are going to be, again, more prone to getting this misinformation, to believing things that are not true, for us to, look at the mindset of an individual and say, you know what, that's the proponent of someone who was told rather than someone who was found. This is also the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can read all of these books, and let's say the author is just writing out information about whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to read all of their books. And you read all of their books, and you're like, okay, I got a good amount of knowledge, maybe even consider it wisdom. But then you find that the knowledge is incorrect. It's not factual. What do? Do you toss it out? No, you just create an awareness saying that this information is not correct. And most of the things now that you have learned from an individual that they're spouting misinformation or things that are not factual, you would start to second guess. Is everything else that they said true? And then that's when you create the awareness, you do the investigative work, and then you begin that journey to figure out what is truly going on. In closing, when it comes to the Mandela effect, our minds can betray us sometimes when we think that we are looking at something that we are convicted that, like, this is 100% my way. I'm right. I'm not wrong. And you have this unwavering belief that you are 100% correct. But then you find out that you're wrong. Well, this is the aspect of what the Mandela effect does and what you can do about it. Because we can look at the famous examples. We can look at how it highlights the critical issue with the human mind and the memory is that we are not perfect. We forget things. I mean, even myself, when it comes to like writing down things for the groceries, I have to write it down on my phone. I can't even write it down on a piece of paper because if I forget the piece of paper, then I'm going to the grocery store thinking like, did I forget anything? And sure enough, if I don't have my grocery list, I'm going to forget one thing or another. And then even if I forget to put something on my grocery list, and let's say I'm just so busy because that's typically my life, where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to add that to my grocery list. And then I forget. And then I'm like trying to figure out, what I need to do, or what I need to add on my grocery list. And it takes a week for me to realize like, oh, I needed to add that to my grocery list because I look in the pantry, I look something, like around the house and I say, oh, I need that. And I don't like to be caught without things. So I make sure that I am completely safeguarded and I make sure all of the holes are covered. And in a sense, we have to make sure that we look at this Mandela effect as an opportunity to create bridges and structures and systems that are going to help not only our memory, but help our lifestyle follow into something that's going to create more abundance, help with critical thinking, with common sense, with awareness, and then the belief that what we might be thinking about today can change. That is the beauty of life. Things can change. Things can adjust. And there's nothing wrong with at a certain time, this is how things are done, or we believed a certain way. I know my dad, for example, he was told by his mother, my grandma, that when you have food and you just cook food, you're not supposed to put the food in the refrigerator because it's going to mess up the food. But the reality is putting in hot food in the refrigerator does nothing bad to the food. The issue when it comes to putting hot food in the fridge is that now that heat is also going to be heating up the refrigerator so that the refrigerator has to work more harder or whatever it be. Now the food in the refrigerator is becoming temperate. It's going to be warming up according to whatever food you put in there. So you put in hot water, it's going to create an environment of humidity. Some of the food might be getting messed up. You don't want that. So it's not so much about, are you going to mess up the food that you put in the fridge? It's about messing up the cold food that's in the fridge already. This is something that he was told that wasn't true, but at the same time, he took that knowledge and he told me that for me to say in my 20s saying, hey, what I was told wasn't true. What else is not true? This is all about what we do here at Reven Concepts. We help people understand that some of the things that you have been told in your life are a lie. You have been told lies again and again and again, and eventually now these lies have become your truth. You believe that you are capped at a certain level. You believe that you can't do anything more than what you can right now. Your circumstance defines you. Your dreams are going to be limited to only to what you have been told versus than what you can imagine. The creativity that you had as a young mind, a young child, has been stripped away, and you need that in order to progress in life. You need to be able to dream. You need to be able to see the things that are going to be right around the corner. You need to see cause and effect. You need to apply critical thinking to everything that you're doing. This mindset that we have to reinvent and realign into our life is not something that's going to happen automatically. Of course, you can listen to the podcast, you can do the self-work, the self-coaching. All of these things are good, but most people are not going to do the work. Think of it as like going to the gym. You want to get in shape and you say, I want to get in shape, and you give yourself a gym regimen, you give yourself a gym membership. And guess what? You find yourself not going. You find yourself not living. You find yourself always on the sofa, not taking action. There's something stopping you. It's your mindset. You need to make it stronger. You need to find the strengths and the weaknesses in who you are. And we all have them. I have weaknesses, but I also have strengths. I lean on my strengths and I get help with my weaknesses. I get other coaches, other mentors, other people to help me push in the areas where I'm weak, to help me build in areas that I do not even know need repair, or they just need some tender love and care. There's so many aspects, but we have to wake up. We have to be able to see that there's something wrong, something is not right, and we have to be the people to put in the effort, give us the discipline, and from there, things begin to change. Because our mind is going to continue to betray us for our whole entire life. But we always have to re-corral our mind saying, nope, you're wrong. I'm powerful. Nope, you're wrong. I can do this. Just because everyone else can do it doesn't mean that I cannot. We give ourselves a certain level of power, and we also give ourselves more inability, more limits, and more weaknesses if we have an uncontrolled mindset, and we already talked about that. The podcast builds itself up. So continue to build yourself up. Continue to listen, continue to share, and help other people realize that they don't have to fall victim to a mind that's lying to them or that a system that is lying to them. They get to create their reality. So what is your reality? What would you like to create? Embark on that journey today. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.